What should be the intro? Welcome into the channel. This is our first episode where we talk about building an AI
Yes,
agency.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And
Hey there.
from
Oh my God. Hey there, and welcome into the channel. This is our first episode where we are going to talk about everything that goes into building our AI agency. My name is Ben, and this is my co-founder Brennan. Brennan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Ben. We were planning on doing this from the beginning, but we kind of got lost in the weeds a little bit, a little lost in the sauce. So this is
Mhm.
the first episode from I guess day one to month two. So we're gonna try to recap what we've been doing, how we got here, what we got coming down the pipeline too for the future.
Nice. And yeah, hopefully this is helpful for anybody that is trying to be able to start up their own agency. What's cool about this is that we don't have the answers for a lot of things, but we can show you exactly what we've been doing and kind of like what that next step is. I know for at least for me, Brendan, you can speak for yourself on this, but it's like it was definitely like overwhelming and daunting thinking to be able to get into this space because everybody who's putting out content, it looks like they're well buttoned up and they know things and all this stuff. And it's like for me, it's like I feel like I'm, drinking out of a fire hose, definitely overwhelmed. And I have a background with tech and not knowing things and still functioning. So for me, this is definitely like a passion project inside of a passion project, passionception, if you will.
All the
So
passions. Yeah.
uh
Likewise.
ditto.
Ditto.
Cool. So I don't know. Brent, why I'll go into interview mode here. What's up, man? What had you thinking about starting an AI agency?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to start businesses, and I have started businesses in the past. And if anybody has done this multiple times, they know that you fail a lot, and I have had some mild success in my previous business I started. But Ben and I actually live in South America, and we decided that we needed to have an additional source of income outside of like our W-2 employer. And so we started bouncing around ideas about what we're going to do, what would make sense, what we're good at. Him and I both have been in the SaaS space, in sales for around 7 years each. So we figured our first idea was like, let's start a sales consulting company, right? We can
Brilliant
help come
idea.
in and
Brilliant.
beautiful. Hasn't been done before. And we'll come in, build out your business motions, help you with appointment setting, etc. And then after doing a bunch of research, you realize that it is indeed saturated.
So
Um,
saturated, which is crazy
Very
because I mean,
saturated.
with that's what we do. We've done that, but apparently so has
Of other
everybody
people.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, who
So
would have thunk, right? Not us.
sucks.
And so as we were fleshing out that idea and like how we can be different, I came across Liam's page on YouTube, and I've always been interested in AI and where it's going and where we're at now. I just never thought like, oh, I'll be the one to build it and make
Sure.
money off of it, right? And then I came across Liam's page and everything just started clicking. So I shared it to Ben, and he's like, "Yeah, this looks awesome." And then that got us into the accelerator, right? And so once we got to that point, um, it was just a matter of like going through the motions and having to learn like what is our niche going to be, what's our product going to be. Everyone's gone through the workshop, hopefully, that is seeing this for the most part, so they know it's a lot of information. um, but yeah, that's kind of how we landed on this, and now we're where we started to where we are now is a much more um refined vision, I guess, with an end goal in sight, as opposed in the beginning it was a little bit, like Ben said, sucking from a fire hose. But
Yeah.
that's how we arrived at the AI stuff with all you
Yeah.
guys.
Uh Curious, what was the point for you where you were like most afraid in the last couple months here?
Most afraid? Like, what
Yeah,
do you mean?
what was your like biggest fear moment?
am I gonna be able to actually build this stuff? Like I don't have any issue at all with like building out, the framework for a business, the motions, the operations, like the sales movements and stuff like that. But like no code, low code, there's still code, right? And like I don't know how to do that. So that was the biggest uh-oh, or I guess daunting part of this for sure.
Yeah, I think it would. That's funny that you say that because I remember you messaging me uh pretty early on when you were going through some of the courses and like you got to the actual like technical portion. You're just like, uh, uh,
Yeah.
I need help. Like I'm like losing it right now. Like my mind has been baked. And I'm like, oh no, oh Lord. Because like
Yeah.
I think that was one of the challenges too. Like starting out is the understanding that like um I wanted to do this too, but I guess spoiler alert, I have a full-time job that I'm trying to be able to like work around too. Whereas so I'd like, have, 9 to 5 obligations, right? And so like that's what I'm doing. So I'm trying to be able to jump in when I have time, do things early in the mornings or in the afternoons, evenings, and stuff like that. And so like I'm going through the course, but I'm like a little bit behind. And I remember when we were first talking, my fear moment was like same thing, like the technical knowledge. And I'm like studying this thing of, okay, I've built like, chatbots like in Drift in the past, setting them up for my sales team. Like I set up like, phone trees and stuff like that for like the HVAC company that I worked for. And so I'm going through like this voice flow tutorial and I'm just like, okay, so JSON, who, like, what is this? And so like I downloaded a bunch of plugins and applications and stuff like that. And so and we were talking about it and you had mentioned like, yeah, we need to start thinking about hiring a developer and bringing a developer in. Or no, the question that I asked you was I was trying to learn everything and I was trying to spend a bunch of time on it and you're like, don't worry about that. I want you to have a general understanding. I was like, okay, like in your mind, who do you anticipate building this stuff? And you're like,
Not me.
oh, like we'll just hire a developer. I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. Like it hadn't crossed my mind. I thought that we were coming into this thing and that we were gonna get get deep into it. And so that was like my moment of like, okay, I'm nervous because like better than anybody. Like I can be a control freak like a lot of the times. And so like hiring somebody on to be able to do something and not having me control it was like this big thing where it kind of sucked for me. And because I wanted
Yeah.
to do it, I wanted to be a pro at it. I wanted to be able to know how to be able to fix it when it breaks down. And um like I'm not sure if you remember the conversation, but you were just like talking through like, no, we need to be able to bring somebody on because like do you want to run maintenance on this thing? Do you want to be able to like jump in there taking like these support calls? Like things are going to go bad. This is tech. Like that stuff is going to bug out, and it's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
no, I don't think
I
like
don't want to do that.
I don't have the capacity of that for that. Like I
Yeah.
can if I have a third grade reading level and we want to be able to get out like literary classics out of here, like it can't be me. So
And
that was super interesting.
I think that like the reason why we kind of went that direction so quickly is because of the goals that we set for ourselves,
Sure.
right? Like how we found our niche rather,
Niche.
our
Niche.
niche. Um, like
Nietzsche
it's
once
because we
said
have
the general agency is dead.
yeah, because we have like very specific goalposts, right? Where we want to
Uh-huh.
be 6 months, 12 months, etc. And I knew that like us doing like one, we need to figure out what we're gonna do, what we're gonna target. And you figured that out with HVAC, with your
Sure.
background and my connections, etc. But then the next one was like, how long is it gonna take us to learn this stuff ourselves and then like run it, for
Yeah.
every client that we onboard. And so that's kind of where that idea came from is like understand it, right? But you don't have to be an expert at it.
Yeah.
That's the mentality that I had too. And it is a little bit off the like we kind of took some different approaches with the workshops, right? We didn't like do it step by step just because of our background where we come from. But um yeah.
Yeah.
Just
I think let's get into some of the technical stuff that we've done because I'm rather proud of where we're at and what
me
we've been
too.
able to put out in the last couple months. And
Mhm.
there's been some like really good moments that we can kind of talk through, which I think niche selection was one of those things. Out of curiosity, you remember
Yeah.
some of the early ideas that we had?
For our niche,
Yeah.
yeah, we were, well, was it like beauty spas, like Medi spas is one of them,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? I think that was the beauty spas. Did we talk about law firms? I think beauty spas was a big one, right?
Beauty spas was a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who the other one was. I
Private
locked
jets,
in. Oh,
private
that's
jet
right,
charter
private
jets.
jet charters. And we're like, how many companies offer private jets? Private jet charter is like 30.
Yeah. It's like one dude out of North Carolina has the monopoly on it. It's like, well, we could
Yeah,
talk to him. Uh,
that could be an
but yeah,
option.
I think it was interesting because like, okay, um, some background knowledge, like, yeah, like I've been in software for 7, 8 years or something like that, and it's like I've worked with gambit of like fitness studios, health and wellness, beauty, so spa salons, barber shops. I worked for a construction management company to where we did like, you know, blueprints on iPads type
Yeah,
solutions. So it's like I had like this area of different backgrounds, and then, but I kept on thinking about the last job that I had before getting into software, which was working for an HVAC company and implementing this tool called Service Titan, and how like that was my first exposure into SaaS, into cloud-based software, into like um, how how cloud tools and automation can help transform a business. Like we went from like 5 million to 7 million like within a year in total revenue by not doing stupid shit like paying a ton of money for systems that were like legacy systems that were literally like on the server to where we all had to like download like Cisco onto
oh
our
no.
computer and then like remote in to the server to be able to do stuff. And so it's like if I were to take a phone call, like I had to go through like this weird like process to where it's like a Rube Goldberg machine trying to be able to like set an appointment, and it was crazy. But I kept on thinking back to that and thinking about like, okay, when I'm going through like this course and like thinking about the different tools that we can make and build, I was like, man, HVAC is perfect for this, right? Like you have operators that they don't have a lot of tools that are built out for them already. They don't have a lot of solutions out there. The biggest service provider right now, there's still a huge gap with like what they're actually offering because they're
Mhm.
they're focused on all the home services. Like, but HVAC, like, and I plugged it in Chat GPT and pulled it up. Like, there's like 150,000 residential HVAC companies that in the US that we can go after and we could talk to. These are all businesses that have specific licenses that if we want to be able to pay some money and be able to pull off a registry, we can. Like I'm going into like complete sales mode of how can we target, how can we go after, how can we market to these folks, and then getting
Yeah.
really focused. And then I think it was like interesting because when I was talking to you about it, like you had mentioned a second ago about like connections and like starting to really realize and going through like my own Facebook page of, hey, who's in the industry? Who can we tap? Who can we talk to? And like, how can we validate some of these things? Because like, yeah, I worked in HVAC, but fucking 8 years ago, it wasn't yesterday. So maybe
Yeah.
things changed. Maybe things are different. So going through like that validation step was interesting. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about that, man. Like your connections, who you talk to, because I feel like there was a certain point where that changed for you and your tone changed with what we were doing because like you're like,
Yeah. So what we once we kind of and we're starting like top of funnel with this, right? And like really honing down to get to where we are with our products, right? So started with HVAC, kind of landed on that as an idea. You mentioned that you had some close connections that either, are owners of HVAC companies or brothers, et cetera. And most of my family is tradesmen, right? So they're all contractors, developers, et cetera. And so we what I did is I went around because we kind of fleshed out an idea, right? Based off of like the knowledge that you had historically working at an HVAC company, like, oh, they could probably use this, they could benefit from this. And then so we kind of had these like loose ideas that were not really refined yet. And
Yeah,
then what I wanted to do.
it was a whole PowerPoint presentation. It was State
Oh,
of the
that's
Union
right.
on
Yeah.
HVAC. Yeah, and
It was a good
so
PowerPoint presentation. Your
it,
game has stepped up a lot since 2022.
it was excellent. It was like new
It
hire
was very
training for like
good.
what
Yeah.
HVAC is,
It was
and then
great.
we had like some theories, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
That's right.
I
We
feel like
created
you didn't trust me too much with it, and then
that's
then you
right.
did.
We put together a PowerPoint, had some theories, and then what we did is went and tested those theories, right?
Mhm.
So the I went and spoke to a bunch of my connections and my family, and was just like running things by them, like, hey, do you think that, your buddies would benefit from this? And would this X, Y, and Z seem valuable? And then I talked to my mom's boyfriend who's been in HVAC for 30 years and he's the top salesman for Daikin. And I just had him like poke as many holes as he could into what are I like where could the pinch points be? Like how would you use this if you were still a tech? Like and just really get a refined idea on what it is that would actually bring value when we go out into the field and talk to these guys from day one, right? So just as you go through and refine a voice assistant over and over and over again, we've been refining the product in like the idea of how we're going to build it, right? Like the framework of it, so that when we go to market with it, it's already been tested by a bunch of other guys and there's not going to be as many, like pinch points that can get us hung up. Um, and once we had that information, then we started building out the products. Is there anything you want to add to like how you like the conversations that you had with like your buddy who's an HVAC owner? Was it kind of the same?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Like my job at the HVAC company was, um, like I ran the team that set the appointments, right? Like my team owned the board, as it's called, like the appointment board, and we had to make sure like we had qualified appointments like every day on the board, and that we had the details like built out in there. And it was a hard job. It was very difficult, and I would have my ass kicked if the information that my team had on there wasn't good, wasn't accurate, was if appointments didn't stick or we didn't get the right things. And so a lot of it was just like identifying the right leads, following up with the right leads at the right time, making sure that I had coverage on the right days and that we were asking the right questions and so all this stuff. So I'm like, man, I hope or if this is still true, right? All these pain points and stuff like that, then we can absolutely solve with this, right? We can, and a couple solutions that we had was just like for the top of funnel for HVAC is like actual voice assistants that can capture inbound demand because like it's interesting that home services in general, incredible amount of phone call demand from their prospects. So it's one of those industries to where the majority of their clients call them to request a service, right? It's not email, it's not like web forms, it's not like anything else. It's phone calls. And phone calls happen all the time, every day, right? Like Saturday, Sunday evenings and stuff like that. And so unless you have a huge staff or you're paying like outsourced services, those calls go to voicemail and you're not getting those
Mm-hmm.
leads. And so I'm like, man, okay, you get a AI voice agent on there to be able to answer phone calls, qualified leads, to be able to book things, like that's value, right? And so like chatbots, I'm going on people's websites, I'm looking at this stuff, and it's like basic jot form, type form, interest level stuff. I was like, none of this is conversational, none of this flows well. And like you and I know from all these other industries, like that's where things are going. People
Yeah.
want to be able to have conversations. So it's like HVAC's not there yet, but why? Is that because it's not offered or it's not talked about right now? Or is it because people don't want it? And it's like I just can't believe that people want to be conversational and they want to be able to have text message conversations in every other industry, but they yearn to talk to a receptionist at a HVAC company. Like that's I just don't buy it,
Yeah. I think
right?
it's more so there's like a maybe there's a lot of people who want to adopt something like it, but they have no idea where to even start.
Yeah,
Right. And then you have some people who are just like traditional till the day they die and will only have an Excel spreadsheet and a notepad.
yeah.
Like,
So that's what's interesting is I and my recommendation for folks, because like this is like conversation between you and me, but for the folks watching this, like don't get discouraged by that. Like, I mean, legitimately, some of the industries that I've sold software to and like mobile apps to and stuff like that, like barbershops. And there was like two different types of barbers that, and this was back in like 2020, right? Barbers that understood technology and wanted to be able to leverage appointments, and some that were like old school cash only, like no, like my clients, they know me, they know that they would walk in, and it's like no, your clients don't want to wait 3 hours to be able to get a haircut. Like they don't want that, like I
yeah,
promise you they don't. And the folks that like adopted technology, now they're charging 100 $120 for a haircut, and the guys that are still like doing like walk-in only are now waiting for their customers, right? Like it's technology has advanced in the last 4 years in that industry completely. And so it's like sometimes you just know that you're a good fit for the industry, and you talk to the people that are the
yeah.
early adopters, they have that mindset, you move on. But that's just like
Mhm.
that's just some sales focus. But that's I I had done my own like conversations, talked to a few of my buddies that are still in the industry, run companies or they're technicians. And it's funny, like my buddies that are technicians are like, oh no, like and telling me like, oh no, owners are sticks and muds. They don't want to be able to do whatever else. And the owners that I'm talking to is like, no, like we need help here. Like technicians are horrible. Like they need training and stuff like that. It's like it's so it's it's interesting. So I was like excited to be able to go to market with some of these things, and that's where I'm not sure if you remember this, but we talked with the dev coach, talked with our ideas, knowing that we had like validation on like what we want to be able to put out there, which was lead capture chatbot on websites that was conversational, voice agents that could be able to take phones after hours, capture leads, score things, be able to book appointments hard like on calendars or integrate with CRMs,
Yeah.
and then troubleshooting bots for uh,
Technicians.
technicians when they were out in the field, right? And so those were our big three ideas, and I thought like one day per thing, we knock this out, we get rolling, and
Hmm.
super wrong, man. I don't think I've been more wrong my entire this entire experience,
Day
but it's
one through
like,
five, we'll conquer VAPI. Day 5 through 8, we will have voice flow set up and integrated.
yeah, I mean,
It's
it
like three
was,
weeks of development for everything.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because once again, my experience with this stuff is like I built a chatbot like through Drift in 2019. So I thought that it was just like set up little tiles and like people can, you know, talk through this like flow. And boy, like, nah, like but it makes sense, right? Like if you want
Yeah.
something to be able to conversational, when you want something that feels like a conversation, you have to be able to build it, you have to be able to test it, you have to put it through 100 different scenarios and stuff. And so
Also, if you
um
want to be proud of the thing that you're going to market with, right?
yeah,
There's
yeah,
certain like polish that you want and like like level of quality that you can be proud of. It takes a little bit more time. And speaking of time, right? So we decided to start off with the voice assistant, right? Um, because why did we start with the voice assistant actually? It made sense when you said it to me. Wasn't it
um
because like there's regardless of why we started with it, we started with it. And where we were day one to where we are now is like vastly different. Like it was day one was talking to a phone tree,
yeah,
right? And now it's like this thing has its own personality. It'll sneeze and say "excuse me" during the call, which blows my mind. It's
yeah,
it's wild. Um, but we learned a couple things throughout that process, and that's actually we brought on our developer too,
yeah,
um, who you've been working very closely with, managing daily, and like having to, I guess, well, I guess from the developer side and then the product itself side, there was lessons learned, right?
yeah,
From the voice side, I think we started building out. like our mistake, if we were to go back and do it again, and we will in the future go out and do this again, but is to perfect the static model inside of Vappy and then worry about integrations later, right? Because we're having tons of issues with the transient model when we were having webhooks built out in Make. And we probably lost a week of development time trying to like really iron out the transient model before we realized like we don't need to do this. We don't have a client yet. Like this should be handled during onboarding, right? So these
Yeah.
custom integrations should be in onboarding. What we need to be spending our time on and our dollars is perfecting the actual static model that we're going to be reselling and
Yeah.
reskinning, right?
And I think part of that was just like I can be a stick in the mud sometimes, and when I have an idea, like that's the only idea that I am open to. And I acknowledge that, and I don't think I've said that out loud to you, so I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
like my thought was like I worked with ServiceTitan in the past. I want an integration with ServiceTitan. This thing should be able to take a phone call, rate the lead, look at a calendar in ServiceTitan, and then hard book on the calendar for the appropriate technician. It
Mhm.
made sense to me. It's what I was familiar with, but at the end of the day, there are other CRM and client management platforms than ServiceTitan, and we don't know what our clients are going to be using when we bring them on board. Like,
Mhm.
like obviously somebody's going to want that integration, but it's not that they want a service side of the integration. They want an integration with their calendar,
Yeah.
and we cannot predict what kind of calendar they're going to have. That needs to be handled like in post. Like we need to be able to build out the flow. Which another mistake on that was just like was not giving enough direction to our developer. Like when we hired him
Yeah.
on, like, we had experience or we knew like HVAC industry, but like developer we brought on was like my wife is a developer, and this is like one of her friends that lives here in Colombia. And so English is his second language. And so uh him being able to code in English and pick up nuances of language in English and then also understand the HVAC business, like it didn't make sense. Like when I was talking with him about like how things should flow, like I didn't give him like examples of what a conversation sounds like. I didn't give him a script. I didn't give him anything. And so when we were talking about like we waste time, like that's one of the huge things that I'm like, man, we're gonna do this again. Like we gotta build out like here's what this sounds like, here's the flow, here's the happy path, bad path,
Yeah.
and be like really prescriptive with it, which anybody that's had a history like in product and design will probably know, right? And that's where I say like give us a little bit of grace. Like we are sales guys uh turned into product nerds. So if you have other like tips and tricks of like the basics, like hit us with it, because like this is an area of opportunity for us, right? And so we stepped up and we built out things, and we spent our time like developing scripts and handing that off. And as soon as we did that, the model itself, uh, I mean, through the roof, the quality, right? And
Yeah.
so um,
Yes.
that was great. And then using that same idea, like before jumping into voice flow and our chatbot, like I spent time in Figma, like drawing out what the conversations will be like the different paths that we want to be able to have available and stuff like that. And like literally using our dev for coding, right? Like not the design portion, like the design really need to be on me, on us to be able to think through, talk through, and leverage our dev for dev. So it
Yeah.
seems really simple, but that's like one of the biggest learning lessons that I have. And legitimately, like could have saved us 2 weeks worth of time on the dev side. Like if we had known that, which is
Yeah.
incredible because we're 2 months in, right? And so to think that we could speed this thing up by like 25% by just being more prescriptive, like blows my mind. So
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest like learning lessons with it. But
That's one of the
uh
best things about having these experiences, though, right? Is because now we know, okay, cool, we can apply that to onboarding clients, right? And this it should be around this amount of time, right? Instead of
yeah,
building everything out from scratch, because he was also learning how to use these tools too,
sure.
right? So you got to give him some grace too. We're like, hey, learn this and then build it for us
Yeah,
in
yeah.
English. So
Which that's I do want to be able to talk about that too, and just like some ideas here is like we hired on Julian, and Julian's been great. We'll probably have him on here either next week or the
Yeah.
week after to be able to talk through some of his projects. But a couple things with that is like understanding that we are now managing an employee has been interesting. And I think one of my biggest things is like is I'm emotionally invested into our products. I want these products to be phenomenal and to be work. And every time that we get hit with a bug, like I need to be able to bite my tongue and like encourage our dude to be like, hey, man, like we came from nothing 2 weeks ago. Like we're making incredible progress. Here's what we need. And like and encouraging him because like there's some of the stuff where he's just like scratching his head on I have no idea why it's working perfectly in a static model but not a transient. It's like, yeah, sucks, dude. Like, but let's like remove that and let's focus on this over
Yeah.
here, and also not getting sucked into like some of that worry and some of that doubt on these things, and really looking at like what we do have. So that's my perspective on it. But I want you to get a chance to be able to highlight some of the things that you've put out in the last
Yeah.
month, or which I want to be able to give people the timeline too. When we say that we've been doing this for 2 months, the first month was learning, and it was all going through
Yeah.
like the building out what we should do, like learning the industry, learning the tools, going through the academy and stuff like that. This last month, month two, has been
Been really where everything
producing
is. Yeah.
tools,
Mm.
content, and stuff like that. So, yeah, uh, Brandon, talk about that, man. What have you
Yeah.
been
So
doing?
this is how I strayed a little bit. We've gone off the beaten path of the workshops, right? And it's not, I'm not saying that everybody should do that or anybody should do that. I think it comes down to like your experience should absolutely play a factor into workshops are like guiding me, right? And like I feel like warm embrace of like, yes, keep going down this path and then come back if you need more information, right? So for me personally, like I like being a sales rep, right? I've always had success with being um like a knowledge expert on the product that I'm selling, and then the branding and look and feel of the product that I'm selling. I can't I can probably sell anything, but I'm a better salesman when I stand I stand behind the product that I'm pushing out. And so for what that means for me and how to apply that is that like I need to have like me personally, I can't just go out to people and sit and sell them something that I myself don't know anything about. One, and two, can't direct them to some place to get more information. Um, it just feels like putting the cart before the horse for me. So my one of my priorities was to build out a nice website, right? So we have like a really nice website. Then you go to it, feels like I can trust these guys. They look like they know what they're doing. Um, it's short and sweet, right? It's just a landing page and Framer that I built out. It doesn't have a ton of pages, and I'm not too worried about like SEO traffic right now. It's more so like a really beautiful business card that we can attach to outbound calls, emails, our socials, etc. And the I had to learn Framer. I never knew Framer existed actually until this community, right? I'm like
Yeah,
Squarespace, WordPress, and honestly, they all kind of suck compared to Framer. Framer rocks, and I feel like the developers in here, all the computer guys are like, yeah, dude, Framer's fucking fantastic. Never knew about it. Went in there and learned it all by myself for the first time, which was a kind of a time suck. But the thing that I spent the most time on after just learning how to set everything up was like our color palette, right? Because I'm really big on colors because they invoke emotion. And so I spent forever. I built the whole website off of one color palette and then went back 2 weeks. It took forever to adjust every single color to all these three different colors that I had. It took forever. And then my wife was like, I can't remember what she said, but she's like, this color is the color of poverty or something. And I was like, seriously? And I spent so long building this out. And so I spent another like 2 weeks going back. It was faster this time, but I figuring out the right colors was
yeah.
very important for me,
Which
obviously.
is this is just a side note, but I love that color blue. It's like this like
It
electric
looks
kind of blue.
good.
I love it. But like, yeah, it
But
looked a
then
little
because then I
sci-fi,
also
and then
yeah, a little too like crispy, right? Like
yeah,
because you go to all of our like who's our actual target audience, right? Then you
Right.
got to think about like who are the people that we're selling this to, and
Dude,
they're like blue collar boys, right?
color
And you go
palette
to
of a
their
barber pole, man. I
you
swear to
go
God.
to their website. Every website in the country for HVAC businesses is some variation of red, white, and blue, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, whoa, okay. So if they go to my website and they see this like Star Trek looking website, it's gonna scare them away. So then I readjusted all the coloring on it.
Uh-huh.
Basically, don't need to get in the weeds on this, but very proud of the website that we built. It looks really good. And then I set up our socials, right? So we got our LinkedIn set up. I've made a couple posts on there, just trying to get some traction. I fully committed to changing my employer to us now,
Nice.
which is really cool and exciting. And then demo site. So I also created a demo site in Framer as well, which we're going to use for demoing prospects. Um, I know Framer has like, excuse me, has like a link with like a static chatbot window thing.
Mhm.
But to have a coming from sales where you're demoing software all the time, you need a demo environment to demo the software solution that you're selling.
Yep.
So we are basically recreating that. So we just created a generic HVAC company that would look like any other HVAC company's website with our chatbot integrated into it, and then the phone number for our voice assistant. So spend a bit of time doing that, which I'm excited to actually demo, try it out.
Yeah.
But it's kind of all
Which,
coming together. Like we got some like professional polish, and now I feel like we have a good bedrock that I can like launch a ton of outreach from.
yeah.
Because if they click on it and they're curious, they're going to go to this and it looks great,
Yep.
as opposed
Uh,
to, go ahead.
like, well, it's one of the things that you talk about a lot, which I think it just kind of goes to our background and what we've done. But yeah, I've always sold off of a demo site, that has I've used a couple decks in my day, but like it's always been a a functioning site that resembles what theirs would be. And
Hmm.
so for me, like that's important. And I've always gone to market with that. I know how to be able to leverage that. I know how to be able to like run signups based on that. And so my big thing right now is trying not to be able to go too overboard with that. Is like
Yeah.
uh knowing like, man, ideally we have a voice agent that captures interest for FieldIQ on FieldIQ's website that is text enabled. That's like we also have, our Instagram integration built in to where like all the tools that we're offering businesses we have running for
Yeah.
ours. But then I'm also like, okay, but we should probably just have a product first that we could actually go to market with.
That works.
And right. Like
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
prioritize things.
It's such a
And
common
which
thing to do.
it's like,
It's just you get like it's spider webs out, right? And like all these variables and options, right? It's
yeah,
hard to kind of it can be difficult to like create
prioritize.
boxes and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, prioritize, but leave it there and like have it adjacent to what we're doing.
Yep.
But set it aside because you have so many ideas. Because like the way that your brain's working when you're starting something new, like a business, is you're working on different parts of your brain that is all about like creativity, right? And so ideas just come from left and right constantly.
Yeah.
It's a part of it. But
So I think that's been one of the biggest things that we've had to be able to leverage and go through is just like this idea that like once again, uh, there's a lot to be able to go through. There's a lot to be able to handle. How do we get very, very specific with what we're doing and how do we get targeted with things?
mhm,
Because once again, like I have a full-time job.
yeah,
I am looking forward to Field IQ being the full-time job, but we're not there yet. So even our time together is limited and we need to be targeted on what we're doing.
mhm,
So it's like things that have really helped us out with that is like being very, very diligent on here's what we want our dev doing, here's the priorities for our dev, like, and then cutting out the noise. In
yeah,
our meetings have scheduled topics that we are just going to cover this today. We're going to cover this tomorrow. And like we have daily meetings, right? But they have topics, they have things that we want covered, and then we're building towards something. So
yeah,
that's like what I think has been really helpful and helped us move forward in a limited capacity, as well as just like it seems kind of simple, but like keeping work and personal separate, like we'll text like on WhatsApp for like random bullshit, but like Slack is for work. And we know that if we get a communication in Slack that is work related and this is what we're doing, setting up like
Yeah.
a Slack instance to be able to have that communication with you, me, Julian, having Notion built out with our projects and what we have going on and what tasks that we have, and then like understanding that and be able to operate on it. So that's been
Hmm.
really helpful for me, at least to be able to help stay focused and be able to pick up where I left off on different things.
Well, both
Um,
of us. Is it? I think it has to do with our corporate background too, right? Like
yeah,
it's really difficult to work in a vacuum, like, and you don't have anything to put your feet on. Um, and for some people that are listening, it might not be, they might not have any corporate experience or any sales experience at all, or, and you can kind of create that for yourself. But like likewise, like um, I need to be working through not barriers, but like almost guardrails, but depending on what that focus or goal is. I just need to have support systematically
yeah,
and operationally to be able to do everything else that I really need to do, like focus on having sales conversations, right? I
yeah,
can't be focusing on like where am I taking notes? They're going to be like on my phone, like how am I going to have this call? Is it going to be in like a Google Meet or is it Zoom or like what's my value proposition?
yeah,
Like, is it going to change every time I have a conversation?
yeah.
You know?
Which that's interesting. I think for the folks that are listening, the what you'll see from us moving forward is we're going to do a deeper dive on some of these tools that we put in place for ourselves, some of the projects that we kind of worked on and have built out for us, some of the things that we
Mhm.
thought through and have written out. I think that's been really helpful to be able to transform our business from an idea to actually implementing and executing on it. And so moving forward, we're going to be able to do like weekly updates. Here's the things that we're working on. Here's what we're expecting and the vision for the future. But with that being said, in the past 2 months, we've gone from we want to start a business. Here's what we know to now being like, uh, no, AAA agency is the best opportunity to be able to provide value in a marketplace. Here's what we're doing to be able to leverage AI tools to build things out. We have a dev, we have our brand, our ideas, how we're going to market. We have a lot of these things. And so if I think about the next 2 months, my goals for us is to be able to like, I think bringing on a client is imminent. We're probably 2 weeks
Yeah.
away from signing somebody. Like I've reached out to a few people on Instagram, have good conversations. I've had a potential client that would like to be able to work with us, but like it's like
HVAC adjacent.
Jason, yeah, they're a marketing
Yeah.
company for an HVAC company. I'm like, I'd love to be able to say yes, but like my dev's working on something else. Like we can't bring that on. So it's like what's crazy is the opportunity that's there. There's people that want to be able to move forward with these tools, but being very focused on like no, we decided to be able to niche down. Like we need to be able to do this. Like obviously we'll listen to the market, but like give us a fucking chance, dude. Like, let's get a chance to be able to work
Yeah.
with like our target demographic before branching off. But next 2 months, like I said, I think clients are imminent, right?
Yeah.
We
I can
uh,
taste it.
in
It's
next
close.
2 weeks, we sign a couple pilot clients that we're able to work with. We have our dev working tightly with them. We build out some custom integrations. We show this, and then get some like win stories.
Hmm.
What are we tangibly doing to be able to provide ROI? How do we measure that? How do we track that? And by the end of this 2 month period, I really want us to be able to have 10 clients on board, as well as like bring our dev on full time. Right
Yeah.
now, he is project based. And we're doing things because we can't guarantee work. I want to get it to a point where we're guaranteeing work. Also, very fun, very exciting is that I've had now 3 different sales reps reach out to me wanting to be able to
Yeah.
work for us. And I mean,
Which is
we're
awesome.
talking
And they're
bang
like,
up dudes,
yeah, yeah,
like
they're like top performers. They're good.
President's Club worthy dudes that want to be able to get in on this project. I'm like, man, I would love to because like there's an insane amount of talent. And I think this thing has legs. And so I'm already thinking through like comp plans and commission structures and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, like we haven't shipped product yet. Like let's
Yeah.
once again be very, very strategic with things because it's like same thing as bringing on clients. You only get one shot to be able to bring them on right the first time. Same thing with
Hmm.
salespeople. You only have one shot to be able to bring a salesperson on, right? And so you need systems that are set up. You need to be able to say, like, here's the leads, or here's how you get leads, here's how you outreach, and here's like our methods for support for these clients.
Yeah,
So my goal is to be able to have that within 2 months, so we can start having these conversations and we can start expanding in these things. But there's runway for us, man. What
definitely.
about you? What's your vision for the next 2 months, and what are some of the big milestones that you see?
It's pretty much in line with yours, like outside of maybe um I want I just want to onboard our first client, like that's literally like I have a vision long term about where I want to
Uh-huh.
be, but it all comes down to just getting our first client because like I'm desperate to go through the motions of because like you said, right? Like we wasted probably 3 weeks on time sucking things for Julian, right? We could have done this all probably in like a week and a half to maybe the 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but now we know, right? Like I want to have that same experience with a client, right? Like how long is it going to take to onboard them for their specific systems, like their specific talk tracks or documentation, their knowledge base that they want to incorporate? What are the conversations I'm going to be having with the owner? Is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly? Like what are those going to look like? Um, and then like post launch into their business, like what is the maintenance call going to look like? Like what type of like how often will this thing break? Like that is what I'm really excited about learning because once we have that experience, then we can apply it and multiply it to everybody else. So getting the first client is extremely like that's my biggest um it's my biggest goal right now. And
It's
then
like so
everything
hairy, like you can't even like see around it. It's just
I
like,
can't see. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
so tunnel visioned. It's all I
yeah,
can see is my first client.
yeah.
But outside of that, then yeah, everything you just said, I'm totally like I want to scale this thing to I want to be I want to turn this thing into like legitimate money making machine that we have staff built out, we have sales managers built out, we have a development team that is handling multiple client projects. Um, down the road, obviously, but I'm in alignment with what you're thinking.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I
it's
that's
important. But it's like, nah, dude, those are terrible goals. Like, we should have we should have an offline discussion about this, Ben.
it's actually I need to put you on a pip. Like we need to improve this goal setting performance. Uh, all right. Well, that's great. I think that what we can do and what I'm curious about is like I think the goal of these conversations is document some of our journey and document what's going on. But let us know in the comments, like what are some of the things that you would like to be able to see from us, right?
Yeah,
Like with I want to be real with you, absolute sales nerds. So we have a lot of documentation for how we structure a 60-second pitch, how we're going to be outreaching to folks, the kind of content that we want as far as what our outreach looks like, specifically for our niche. If you that's interesting to you, let us know. And also, uh, if you think you are seeing around the corner for us and seeing things that we aren't thinking about, like let us know too, because like that's one of these things where I'm very curious for feedback and very curious for what is that next level of learning to be able to get us through this.
yeah,
Because like I said, while I'm very proud of what we have, we got negative in the revenue, right? We ain't making nothing. So all we do is pay money.
yes,
Um,
dude.
so like if you're out there, if you're bringing in and you're in the green and you have that positive revenue, like what's the biggest thing that you've learned? What are some things that you would look back on your month 2 to 4 and say like, these are the biggest lessons. Here's the biggest takeaways. That's my
Great
thoughts.
to hear that feedback. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm just gonna ride your coattails off into the sunset in this call.
Fair.
I would too.
Yeah, I mean reasonable. All right, y'all. Catch you next week. But thanks a bunch. Like I said, my name's Ben. This is Brennan, and we are Field IQ. Thanks, and we'll see you
Later,
soon.
guys.